To get back to the issue of religion, which is something that I think about a lot, religion and God. Probably it's a lot to do with God, but also religion. It is debatable which comes first. Is it God or the gods, followed by religion, which sort of provide us with the ritual through which man, woman attempts to communicate with the gods. Um, it is a bit like the chicken and egg situation, which comes first. However, I think it's probably reasonable to assume that ideas of God probably precede theories and the religious aspect of it, the ritual through which the priest has to go in order to speak to God, um, and then pass that information back to the people. And so we can imagine that as man and woman, having found themselves in a very fearful and unpredictable environment, sought some kind of security, which they themselves could not provide. They need the wildlife and the plants they needed for food to be plentiful. They needed the water to continue to be available in abundance. They depended on the rain, the rivers, the water for their crops and their livestock. They needed security of those very important resources through which life is probably unsustainable. Similarly, the ancients needed the sun to provide them with light, with warmth, to help their crops to grow, as well as the moon, which would provide them with some light during their dark nights and probably help to protect them from predators. Being hunter-gatherers, they might have been, but probably from the earliest time, man and woman would have wanted to acquire some certainty, some predictable or predictability and security in their existence. They would have wanted some assurance that the sun and the moon was going to be up there in the sky and that it would continue to shine and bring them warmth, bring them light, help their plants to grow, as I have said earlier. Similarly, they would have wanted reassurance that the rain would continue to fall, the rivers would provide them with abundant supplies of water for both themselves, their plants, and their livestock. It is not surprising that the ancient man and woman would have evolved into worshipping and or showing great reverence to the sun, to the moon, to water and land, since they, the ancients, being probably the first empiricist, even probably naturally before the concept of the term empiricist, would have watched and observed how the different elements combined to provide them with food, shelter, warmth, and knowledge. probably like contemporary man and woman, the would ancients, when confronted with enormous changes in their environments, such as earthquakes, famines, large-scale wars, disease epidemics, would have sought to try to resolve them. We can imagine that the ancients' first port of call would be to their priest and those in their communities with, in inverted commas, special powers, those who had the power to work miracles or speak to the gods on the people's behalf. Not having reached the level of technological and scientific evolution which contemporary man and woman have achieved, the ancients might have relied on the gods to alleviate and or solve their problems. Of course, in the absence of any proof of the existence of an omnipotent God or being, those of us who are not believers, let's say in God per se, can assume that any help which the ancients might have had to deal with their problems would have been limited to what they themselves were able to apply and or to fortuitous events. Thus we can imagine that if, for example, they were having drought, famine, the rain might have started to fall and alleviate that problem. Similarly, if they had been fighting a major war, it might have been the case that disease might have attacked their enemies, and or other people might have attacked their enemies, causing them to probably retreat and bring an end to that conflict. Of course, there would have probably been someone in the community who would have taken some responsibility for such acts, such, in inverted comma, victories. So I think that what I will do, I will stop at this juncture and I'll come back again with the rest of my argument regarding religion and God. Thank you for listening.